Minister of Research, Innovation and Digital Policy, dear Speaker, Professor Papanicolas, dear speakers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm privileged to be with you today at the Cyprus Forum to chair the panel discussion, the pivotal subject of developing entrepreneurs in an academic setting. With 6 distinguished guests, I would like to warmly welcome the speakers and all conference participants, as well as congratulate the organizers. I'm confident that the discussion will be thought-provoking, inspiring, and beneficial for everyone. Without any further ado, let me jump straight to the question. I used to sit next to you and in the receiving side of questions, but this is an innovative way of doing so. So we are positive on innovation. So, dear Deputy Minister, in the Cyprus context, and your ministry in particular, what is your verdict so far as a new minister with regards to developing entrepreneurs in an academic setting?
Well, you know, entrepreneurship is a competency extremely important, very essential in competing in a globalized economy, especially in a rapid changing setting, not just because of the pandemic, but because of technological and other economic and social factors. Our society and our economic competitiveness is fastly evolving. So entrepreneurship means different today from what it used to mean in the past. Today, entrepreneurship is characterized by continuous learning, a knowledge-based competency, and agility to adjust and adapt, or even form the new norm. Now, what is the higher education? What is the academia output? Why do we go to university? To enable us to produce knowledge workers that will be serving the knowledge-based economy, and entrepreneurs with the innovative spirit, agility, and all the characteristics and competencies that relate to that. So in an academic setting, that means that it's not anymore adequate for having academic and research excellence in higher education. In the past, it used to be almost adequate. Today, it's just 50% of the equation. The other 50% is to produce the entrepreneurial spirit embedded into the academic curriculum and the research excellence, so that when the student from the university, from the higher education, is placed in the market, is able to compete in an entrepreneurial environment that is much more fast-changing. There are 3 important pillars, to my mind, that make this academic setting capable or enabled for producing the knowledge worker that will be able to compete in the knowledge environment. Number 1 is real-time connection of academia with their businesses, with the industry, with the real world. And when I say real-time, that means that entrepreneurs must go to the university, and the university academic, the professors and the students, they need to be connected real-time with the industry. This is extremely important. And this can be done in different protocols, startups, spin-offs, but also real businesses that are mainstream businesses. Look how Oxford University, working with a pharmaceutical company, are working on a vaccine. This is a real-time connection. The second important element is changing the curriculum and adjusting and adapting the curriculum of every university to be real connected to what the market needs. And we see this especially in technology sectors and bio sector. We see this when there is a disconnect between the academia or the academic curriculum and what the market really needs, then the output, the product, the knowledge-based worker is not qualified to be placed into the market. The third, and I stop here, the third important element has to do with the entrepreneurial spirit of how the university, the academic setting of the university is being run. The governance system, the management system of the university, the KPIs of a university, even the management structure and the culture must be really entrepreneurial, not just academic. And all these three pillars are key enablers. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. So what a great pass. So my next question goes to the Executive Director of MIT, Deshpande. Pleasure seeing you again, Leon Sandler. So as one that has visited Cyprus, and I was fortunate to have long discussions with you and had interactions with the local ecosystem, what in your opinion would drive academic entrepreneurship development in our country? You have a problem with the...
Just had to unmute my microphone.
It's great.
Let me address this at a number of levels. I am going to, somehow I've got some feedback. Let me try something. I'm going to let me just turn my volume down here because I'm going to mute this. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Great.
Yeah, it's still coming through. Okay, that's better because I had to, otherwise I'm getting a feedback loop. This works, so this is working well?
Yeah, everything is great.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you great.
Yes, okay,
yeah,
great.
Clearly.
So very quickly, when we talk about, I think when we talk about academic entrepreneurship, there are different components. There is the professor, let's say the student, the PhD student or the postdoc, and then there's what happens in the spin-out. So if we look purely at what is happening in the university and in the area of trying to commercialize research, when I look at the professor as an academic entrepreneur, what you want there is somebody who has this idea factory, this factory that's turning out new technologies that can be commercialized and spin out. So when the professor acts as an entrepreneur, and we see this a lot at MIT, these are people who engage with industry, they go out, they find real problems, but their entrepreneurship is about getting resources into the university, building a team of appropriate students and postdocs who are people who are interested in going out into the world and solving problems rather than, let's say, pursuing academic careers. So when we think of that side of it, you want to develop academics who are entrepreneurial in the sense of what they do in the university to move stuff forward. The other stage, which I see, is important, is to realize that entrepreneurship, it's a team sport. It's not like playing golf. It's like playing soccer. So what happens is in a team environment, you need to have people who are good at business, people who are good at technology, people who are good at other areas, all working together. And it's a question of from a training standpoint, how do you train people to work in teams, not work individually? The other thing is exposure, and the third is learning by doing. You've got to get people exposed to other areas, exposed to customers, exposed to users, exposed to other disciplines. You want to put programs in place that almost force that exposure. And the third thing is get them engaged in actually doing some entrepreneurial activities, trying things to start to build that skill set. And I know I was supposed to take 2 minutes, and I think I'm at 3, so maybe I'll stop here.
Thank you, Leon. What another great pass. So combining the linkage between academia, industry, and having a success story at the end of the day. Marina Hatsopoulos, privileged to have met you before, board and member and investor of Levitronix Technologies. So having started a business from scratch, right, and by licensing a technology through MIT. So how important is it for inspiring entrepreneurs to take advantage of such opportunities offered through technology transfer offices? Can I have your opinion on that?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Great, yeah, clearly.
Good. So it's, in terms of coming through the technology transfer office, we got two important things in our relationship with MIT. One was very broad intellectual property. And so these were not just inventions, but they were actually issued patents. And for any tech startup, product differentiation is extremely critical. University environment is a great way for a technology to develop. You get access to cheap labor and to expensive equipment. And the inventors of our particular technology had developed this over 5 years at MIT. So they had developed a tremendous amount of know-how, which they were able to bring to Zoo Corporation by the time we started. The licensing office also provided us a big name. So by having MIT's name behind us, that allowed us to protect ourselves from potential infringers. And we know this is the case because one of our customers, who's a very big name company, bought our equipment, tore it apart, but they didn't actually enter the market and compete with us until after the MIT patents expired. So we think that operating through the licensing office offered us tremendous benefits. It's not the only way to find an invention, but somehow finding something that's novel and that provides the kind of differentiation which allows you to find your place in the market and price your product at a premium is really critical.
Can you hear me? What a great example that story is. So my next question goes to Professor Lionel Tarassenko. So as a founder of several university spin-off companies, including Ox Health, a UK tech success story, what would you say is the greatest challenge when it comes to developing entrepreneurial activity in an academic setting?
Right, just to make sure, I unmuted myself.
We can hear you clearly now, yeah.
I listened to the echo, so I know I'm coming across. Okay, good afternoon or good evening in Cyprus. Sorry that we can't be with you in person, but welcome from rainy south of England. So the question is, what is the greatest challenge? And in my 2 minutes, I will point to two challenges because they dominate the difficulties that we have if you want to be involved in tech transfer. I speak as somebody who's spun out 4 companies from my lab. So what are the greatest challenges? The top 2, as I say, the first one is time pressure. Because if you want to be involved in innovation, in entrepreneurial activities, you also still have to do the research in your lab, the teaching of your students, and the administrative load that every academic has. And if, for example, you cut down on your teaching, or you ask to cut down on your teaching, and here I speak as someone who was Dean of Engineering at Oxford for 5 years and had many colleagues come to me and say, look, I'm just about to spin out some ideas for my lab into a company. Could you reduce my teaching load by 50%? Well, that's all very well, but somebody else has to do the teaching. Because normally it takes quite a while for the company to be spun out, for money to come in, and for that money to be used to fund some replacement teaching. Even if there's money to fund replacement teaching, it takes a while to get good people to come and do that teaching on a post, which is probably going to be a short-term post. So the time pressure is the greatest because most academics will have to continue to do their research and 100% of their teaching whilst also engaging in entrepreneurial activities. So they'll be working on Saturday, like we all are today. But that's part of the game, and most people accept it for the gain that they're going to get. So number one, time pressure. And number two, IP discussions, intellectual property discussions. These take up a lot of time. And on the one hand, you've got the university that knows that the only leverage they have is by keeping hold of some of the intellectual property from the university, from the inventor. And on the other hand, you have the investors that want to not only exclusively license the intellectual property, but assign it. So most investors would like the intellectual property to be assigned when the startup gets off the ground, but the university usually asks for an exclusive license because they want to be able to get the intellectual property back if the spin-out doesn't work. So this creates lots of discussions, lots of battles. So if you then get another major investment, the investors say, okay, now we're the second stage. Can we have the intellectual property assigned? And so on. So these are discussions that take up a lot of time, and there is no template. Every time you do a spin-out, you have different investors, different academics, and you start again at zero for the intellectual property discussions. So that's the second challenge, really how to deal with intellectual property. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. So going to an academic institution, Professor Papanicolas, president of the Cyprus Institute, another great example. The Cyprus Institute is an organization that has managed to successfully secure both national and EU funding. So to what extent have results of funded projects have been exploited commercially? And what obstacles did you find doing so?
Thank you and the organizers for inviting me. It's not working.
The speaker, the microphone.
Hello? 1, 2, 3. Maybe we should go to...
Okay.
Hello? Oh, no. Okay. So, I would like to thank the organizers and you for inviting me to this panel. Great forum. Great to be part of it. Correction, I'm no longer the president of the Cyprus Institute. As of September 1st, I'm not. I continue to be the CEO of the Cyprus Research and Educational Foundation, the owner of the Cyprus Institute, and under which part of the entrepreneurship is being carried out. A few months ago, we created the first holding company that will manage creation of spin-offs. And we just created, actually, also in the summer, the first 2 spin-offs out of the Cyprus Institute under CREF. Now, the very engineering and establishment of the Cyprus Institute and CREF, in which actually the Boston ecosystem and the colleagues I gladly see played a major role in its architecture, states as a mission to develop excellence in academia to help evolve the Cyprus economy to a knowledge economy for the benefit of the people of Cyprus and the region. So it's very much in the mission of the Institute to go into innovation. That's how you help develop a knowledge economy. Yes, indeed, we have been very successful in research, and we are very proud of it. As you know, we gross 8 times the European average per researcher, which I believe puts us at the very top of the European institution in terms of performance. Innovation is coming. We had to establish excellence in research first. I think we are well on the way there, and then move to innovation. Our agenda, which played a major role, which was very well thought through, involves key elements which will enable us to accelerate now. It involves sustainability, and as we know now, innovation and sustainability is almost a mantra. Digitalization, we had from the very beginning the the first supercomputer of the area, and now we're the national point for high-performance computing and cyber infrastructure, and renewable energies, in particular solar. So the research agenda that has been carried out also is vector and perfectly aligned to the new Green Deal, which says digitalization and decarbonization. So the research agenda and the excellent results are getting there to get into the marketplace. I will conclude by saying that in the last 2 years, we have been developing, the board has been encouraging us to move now into innovation. We did. We have established a pipeline, the so-called from research to the marketplace. And I'm not by nature an optimist, but in this case, I'm an optimistic that this will work out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. And congratulations to the job well done, getting grants and creating spin-off companies and moving on with an entrepreneurial way of thinking. So my next question goes to Christina Karapataki, an investor at Breakthrough Energy Ventures. I had the pleasure to meet you a couple of months ago in Limassol. So you have an extensive experience with investing in technologies, in technological companies that can significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Very important in our days. And how often do the founders of the companies active in this area come from an academic setting? And how important is that?
Can you hear me well? Excellent, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you to the organizers for setting up a great panel. Indeed, so the stage where I typically invest in is in green climate technology, and it's in very early stage technology innovations. So a lot of the new companies and spin-offs that we see come out of universities, and those are either working directly with the technology licensing offices that were already mentioned to identify new areas, but more importantly, working directly with the professors and the academics that are developing the new products and the new inventions. And that's what gets us very excited, because that is where we see the breakthroughs coming out, particularly in the field of climate tech investments. So we've developed those relationships over time. We try and inform them and provide feedback about the areas where we would like to invest. But more importantly, what I want to mention is something that was already brought up a couple of times, that we never invest in one individual. We always invest in teams. So it's critical that those academic founders collaborate and connect very quickly with the industry and with other entrepreneurs and form a team around them that looks not only at the academic innovation, but also on the business plan development and how do you build a commercial product. So those are the teams that we tend to back. And that's when we see the biggest potential and the opportunity for having private capital deployed into products that come out of universities.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christina. That's great. So if I have time, I'll move on with the question. So back to Marina. Based on your experience and own career path, is it enough to be the inventor, innovator to make a spin-off succeed, or much more is needed?
Yeah, so being an entrepreneur is beyond a full-time job. So it's not something that can be done on the side. And it can be tempting for an academic to not want to give up their technology, but also not want to give up their great job at the university. And that's understandable. But in order for a technology to be commercialized and reach the market, you need a dedicated team to pursue that. So what's typically done in the United States is the professor will work 1 day a week on the new startup and may even take a board seat. But it's really the students or the hired entrepreneurs who go out and get the product to market. And this is really the only way to get the technology off the ground, unless the professor or researcher decides to take the plunge and pursue it full time. We had at Z Corporation 2 co-founders on the technical side coming out of MIT and 2 on the business side. And this worked really well because then whoever it is who's staying up all night to get the demo to work is not the same person who's pitching to potential investors in the morning. So having that division of labor actually worked very well for us because we could pursue parallel paths of development, one on the business and one on the technical.
Thank you very much, Marina. So my next question, again, to Professor Tarassenko, over and above the comments from Marina, is Oxford has been characterized as the hotbed of tech startups. What do you think was the drive force behind the entrepreneurial spirit that made this possible?
Well, first of all, I'd want to correct that we're the only hotbed of tech startups. I mean, Marina is just speaking from MIT, and very often we wish to emulate. We may be the hotbed of tech startups in the UK, but there are plenty of other hotbeds elsewhere in the world, certainly in the US. Why do we have this particular ecosystem at Oxford? I think because Oxford was one of the first universities to set up a tech transfer office, Oxford University Innovation, about 40 years ago. I came from industry to be an academic 33 years ago in Oxford, and when I got involved in entrepreneurial activities about 30 years ago, it was tolerated amongst the academic community. What has happened in the last 3 decades is gone from toleration to active encouragement. And that's partly because the UK government assesses the state of research in its universities every 6 or 7 years through the Research Excellence Framework exercise. And in the last 2 decades, there's been a new category of impact. And in the physical and life sciences, so biotech, medicine, engineering, physics, chemistry, the impact, of course, is mostly through tech startups. So it is now actively encouraged, and of course, actively encouraged throughout the UK. But because Oxford had been early in setting up its tech transfer office and creating its ecosystem, it's probably meant that we had a lead over other universities. Also, we're very competitive. There was a reputation for Cambridge Biotech just up the road, and we wanted to compete with them. So now Oxford AI is probably as well known as Cambridge Biotech. But I think the key thing is to get enough critical mass, enough people doing it, that you get an ecosystem. So when my colleagues, and in fact, the lab in which the vaccine is being developed is directly above my lab in the Institute of Biomedical Engineering at Oxford. So I know a lot of the people working on the Oxford vaccine project. It was actually initially, in the very early days, for about a couple of months, transferred to a university spin-out that the lab directors had set up called Vaccitech. And then when we realized the scale of what was happening, there were discussions transferring it from the university to Vaccitech and on to AstraZeneca. And why that could happen is because the ecosystem really exists now. Most of the academics in the building are entrepreneurs, have done at least one spin out. And so when there was this one that was really needed, all the chains, all the links in the chain, all the connections you needed to make it happen, to be able to talk to AstraZeneca were there. So we could sign off, and I'm not going to reveal anything that is not known when I say, because I actually sit on the Oxford University Innovation Board. From first discussion to signing the deal with AstraZeneca was less than a month. And that's only possible if the ecosystem exists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So my last question goes to the Deputy Minister. So I think we always say we should start early. What is your view on the role of higher education on this?
Well, first of all, you're very well known that in Cyprus, higher education is one of our future key pillars for a new kind of economy. We're developing higher education industry as a key enabler for competitiveness and social prosperity in 2 dimensions. One dimension is the industry in itself, because you attract students and you create the capacity and the bandwidth for knowledge creation. And the other important aspect of higher education, as rightly mentioned before by previous speakers, you need a critical mass of researchers and students and an ecosystem for creating the capacity required to trigger this economic effect that is desired. In this context, we are kicking off by the setup of, as you very well know, through Research and Innovation Foundation, the board of which is chaired by you, the Technology Transfer Office. We are revisiting the bill for the spin-offs so that we create the right environment for encouraging academics to create spin-off companies and startups. And it was mentioned something before about this agreement between AstraZeneca and Oxford University was done in 1 month time period. You understand that speed of execution and agility is extremely important, and our higher education industry and our education institutions, if we want them to succeed, they need to have this speed of execution, adaptability to the new requirements and the realities of the market as they evolve, and agility to create what is required in terms of knowledge workers. Thank you.
I couldn't have agreed more. So thank you very much. Due to the limited time, I wish we had more time to discuss this matter for hours. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, Minister, guests. Thank you very much.